I'm making vegetarian pasta fagioli soup today, and I'm using kidney beans that I had already cooked and that were overcooked and sitting in a container in the refrigerator. But you can use canned kidney beans in this recipe. Let's get started, and I'll show you how to make it. I'm starting with a 28-ounce can of whole peeled tomatoes, and I'm going to put them into this large bowl. And then I'm going to break them apart with my hands, so into smaller pieces. Be careful how you do this. I just squirted a white kitchen towel. So I guess poke it inside and get it to squirt inside the bowl. So I'm not going to have you watch me break all of these apart. Obviously do this with clean hands, remove your rings first, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going to show you, after you get all of these broken apart, what we're going to do next. Next, I'm going to set the stove burner on medium to medium-high heat. And I'm going to put in a tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, which is basically a couple swirls around. And while that heats, we're going to chop up some onion. So for this, I'm going to slice 1 onion. Get rid of all the papery parts. I hate when the paper gets all over the place. Alright, peel all that off or fast forward through the video. Alright, and there's one little bit here. Okay, and I might end up getting rid of some of that center. I don't like how that looks. And then, I show this in some other videos, but when I want to make a soup and I want to slice them into bite-sized pieces, I'm going to slice it like this, leaving this uncut, and then I'm slicing on this side to get all these little pieces. And then do the other half of the onion the same way. And I'm actually going to check the butter, make sure it's not burning. Okay. And I'll trim this one this way so you can see it from this angle. That weird looking center. Okay. Now I'm ready to put this into the pot and give it a stir. Frankly, it seemed a little high to me. But that's just me. The thing is, when you put vegetables into the pot like this, you want to stir it right away to get all the vegetables coated. So now we're going to actually mince some garlic. The recipe calls for 6 garlic cloves, so I have some that are huge and some that are small, and it calls for them to be minced. So I'm going to put it in this mincer, and it comes out this other end. And then I use the blunt side of the knife to cut it out. And then I use this handy little thing to get the extra out. So I'm going to do this with all of them. If they're too big, you can cut them in half. Stick them in here. Oops. Cut it over the little bowl. Okay, so I'm going to do this with all of them and then put them in the pan, and that's what we'll do next. All right, now back to the pan. I'm going to add the garlic. And I'm going to add 2 other ingredients, oregano, dried oregano, and crushed red pepper or red pepper flakes. And I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of each that I've already measured out. And now I'm going to stir this, reduce the heat a little bit, and I'm going to keep stirring for about 3 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer for 3. And the reason you want to keep stirring this and not walk away at this point is because minced garlic will burn very easily. Now, the onions got a little bit brown. They're probably a little too brown, but at this point, because they're not overly brown, they'll just add some good flavor, that's all. So I'm going to stir this until the timer beeps, and I'm not going to make you watch that. All right, 3 minutes have gone by. Now I'm going to pour in those tomatoes. Then I'm going to put in 4 cups of chicken stock, chicken broth, either way. And this container is exactly 4 cups. So I'm going to open that. I didn't do it before I... Okay, so that's what's in. Then, the other thing is, because the kidney beans I'm using, I had cooked them from scratch and they got overcooked. I'm not going to put them in at this point because they're already, like I said, they're already overcooked. I'm going to add them later. But if you have canned kidney beans, and that's what you're using, then what you'd want to do is 2 regular cans, or about 30 ounces of kidney beans, and you want to pour them into a colander and rinse them off. You don't want all the water that they come in. And put them in at this point. That would be fine. Then the other thing I'm going to put in is 2 bay leaves. This might be an old container that I'm reusing and putting my bay leaves into, but they come in at your regular spice area of your grocery store. And now what I want to do is I'm going to increase the heat to high, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. So make sure you watch it, because when it comes to a boil, we're going to reduce the heat. So that will be next. The soup is boiling now, and I would say it took about 10 minutes or so to get to this point. So now I'm going to reduce the heat to the point where I barely see it simmering. And by simmering, for those of you new to cooking, I mean I want to see little bubbles. And I have this heat on very low right now, but sometimes it takes about a minute for it to respond. And I'll stir it up a little bit. I want those bay leaves to get flavoring the soup. Now let's see, I did a little too much. The bubbles stopped. So I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit. I still want to see bubbles. So I see some. And when it's barely simmering, turn on the timer for 20 minutes. While the soup is simmering, another thing you want to check is your pasta. So you're going to want to get some tiny pasta, little shells, something small. I bought the quinoa kind, and check for how long they cooked. Now these cook for 6 to 9 minutes. So when the soup has about 8 minutes to go, I'm going to put in 1 cup of the pasta, and that's also when I'm going to put in the kidney beans. Alright, I have about 8 minutes to go, and I'm going to put in my pasta now. And I'm also going to put in kidney beans. They are already very, very cooked. And I have no idea how much I'm putting in here. But the recipe calls for 30 ounces, which is like 2 cans. And I'm going to stir it, and I have more, so actually I'm going to put in a little bit more. And because Since the pasta really needs to boil, it doesn't say to simmer it, I'm going to turn up the heat just a little bit. And the beans are coming out of the refrigerator in my case, so they're cold. So increasing the heat to about medium. Then I'm going to check it when the timer goes and see if the pasta's done. So that's the next thing we'll do when we come back. The timer has buzzed, and now I want to test some of the pasta. It's going to be really hot, so I'm going to put it in a little bowl. And also, I was thinking, okay, does it have enough pasta? Since I'm using gluten-free, actually, there isn't much in here. I might even add a little bit more. So taste your pasta, and if it's not done, you'll need a little more time. All right, I tasted my pasta. It's still chewy. I think it's because I'm using the quinoa pasta. It just takes longer to cook. I'm going to put a little bit more in. And I'm going to turn up the heat because this pasta really needs to boil. If you're using regular pasta, that's a lot more foolproof. So I'm going to turn up the heat, and because I'm putting in more, I'm making it up as I go along. So I'm going to cook this for another 9 minutes. All right, I let this boil because, well, it's pasta. So now I'm going to taste some of the pasta again. And I'll get a couple of them out into a little bowl. And taste them off camera, of course. Okay, now it's better. So now what I want to do, the pasta's done. I want to taste the broth because I haven't added any salt or pepper at this point. So this is something I want to taste offline and decide how much you need. Actually, because of all the garlic, it hardly needs anything, really. Well, that's me. I'm not a big salt person anyway. You know what? I'm not going to add any salt and pepper, but if you did want to add some, start with a 1/4 teaspoon. So, but before you do that, the other thing you need to do is go in here and find the 2 bay leaves. We need to take those out. Oh, here they are. So take those out and get rid of them. All right. Put them in your little bowl that's on the side. Okay, I thought I had them both. So that was pretty good. And next we'll put it in a bowl. If you want the soup to be truly vegan, then don't put any cheese on it or use some grated almond cheese. I'm going to put a little Parmesan on. And that's it. That's how you make an easy vegetarian pasta fagioli soup.